What's going on, Gacha Gang? Kawaii50 back with another FGO video, here to cover the last servant I need to cover from the first Lost Belt 3 banner, Qin Liangyu. We're going to be going over the best craft essences to equip her with, the best allies that she needs to function effectively, the best command codes you want to give her, and everything you need to know in order to make this Lancer work. And you're gonna need to know some stuff, because I'm gonna be upfront with you, gang. Making this Lancer work is work. And please remember, if this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share. Every little bit helps. As always, let's kick this off by looking at Qin Liangyu's stats. She's got a quick arts buster deck and an arts type noble phantasm. Her max HP is very solid at 13,387. But it is her attack that really leaves a lot to be desired. At 8,295 attack, she has some of the lowest attack out of the entire Lancer class, and even their passive attack boost doesn't really help that much. She's got your expected star absorption for a Lancer, and her NP per hit is pretty alright as well, with her arts and quick heavy deck making it so she won't have a lot of difficulty charging it, but she really does need to charge it, and you'll find out why as we get further in the video. Liangyu's first skill is White Shaft Spear rank B. This increases her quick and arts card effectiveness by 10 to 20% for 3 turns, and also increases her critical strength by 20 to 30% for 3 turns, and this is on a 5-turn cooldown. This is Qin Liangyu's primary damaging skill, but because of the nature of her kit, what her Noble Phantasm is designed to do, I actually would recommend that you max this skill last. The arts card effectiveness is actually the main reason you want to focus on this skill in order to charge her Noble Phantasm and use it as often as possible. Liangyu's second skill is Faithful Fellow Soldier rank B. This increases her Star Gather rate by 300 to 600% for 1 turn, gives her 3 instances of debuff immune and 3 instances of buff removal resist. This is on a 5-turn cooldown. I recommend leveling this second because her Noble Phantasm is actually focused around her having a really solid chance to crit. So if you're trying to set her up, you really need that critical star gather rate to make sure that she gets those stars when she needs them in order to make her Noble Phantasm work and benefit the team. And Qin Liangyu's final skill is Banditry Abolisher rank B. This gives her 2 instances of guts over the course of 3 turns and also increases her NP gauge by 10 to 20%. And this is on an 8-turn cooldown when completely maxed. This is the skill you want to max first, for 2 reasons. First reason being that one of her Noble Phantasm effects requires her to be attacked, so you need to give her chances to survive when that attack is going to be definitely lethal, and Banditry Abolisher helps with that. She also wants to use her Noble Phantasm as often as possible, so increasing her NP gauge is helpful. I just wish this NP charge was better. 10 to 20% honestly isn't really that much. And now we move on to Qin Liangyu's Noble Phantasm, the cornerstone of her kit, Poem of Altruism and Loyalty rank B. And get ready, because this is going to be a mouthful. She can inflict defense down by 10% for 3 turns to an enemy when she normally attacks. She cannot crit in order to inflict this debuff. When she does critical attack while this Noble Phantasm is active, she removes the enemy's buffs. She decreases the critical strength of an attacker by 10% when an enemy attacks her. You can see why we're focusing on that guts. And finally, she also increases her own attack by 30 to 50% for 3 turns, depending on the Noble Phantasm level. There is an overcharge effect, though, where she restores the HP of all allies by 2,000 to 4,000, depending on overcharge, but she has to take a critical attack from the enemy to do that. So you can see, again, why we wanted to invest in that guts. Qin Liangyu's Noble Phantasm is so important to her kit, my friends, that she to me really seems like a servant that is NP 5 or nothing. Her attack stat is so low that you really need that attack boost in order for her to deal any kind of damage when she's getting those crits or when she's not getting those crits, whatever you need her to do in the moment. And having the potential to max overcharge is going to increase the overall healing your entire team gets when she gets attacked by it. You can see why this is so difficult. In order to truly max that heal to keep her alive, she needs to get the maximum potential overcharge, which necessitates a 300% NP gauge, which necessitates using her Noble Phantasm last in an NP chain, which also means you need to NP5 her. She is a very investment-heavy servant. When it comes to our craft essences, the stat I recommend for Liangyu over absolutely anything else is NP gain. She needs her Noble Phantasm, people. She needs her Noble Phantasm in order to function well, and an NP steroid on top of that wouldn't hurt because she needs to cast it as soon as possible once battle starts. So, my best recommendation for her is Magical Girl of Sapphire. This increases her NP regeneration rate and also gives her a starting NP steroid to boot, meaning she can use her Noble Phantasm as soon as possible. Since part of her NP kit necessitates that she gets hit, I also would like to recommend Chaldea Lifesavers. This grants her an instance of Guts, meaning she won't have to use her Guts skill for survivability, and also grants her that NP gain increase she needs. I can also recommend Trick or Treatment for a more attack-focused instance. Trick or Treatment gives her the NP gain, but also gives her a critical strength boost. Remember, she needs to crit at times to get that buff removal off from her Noble Phantasm, so dealing a little extra damage, considering her attack stat is not very good, is going to help her out immensely. With how Liangyu's Noble Phantasm works, my friends, finding allies for her was very taxing and difficult. She needs to be attacked, and she is not a damage-dealing servant. She is a debuffing servant. So I couldn't necessarily recommend any of the general support classes I would recommend with a DPS-style servant. As far as she goes, I would recommend pairing her with Arts-type Lancers, so they could benefit from an Arts Brave chain, as well as a couple of other servants I'm going to mention here who can make use of her in more unconventional ways. Starting, of course, with the 2-star, I will be grailing to 100 Chen Gong. Not only is Chen Gong a 3-kingdom servant, which means he completely deserves a spot in your Chaldea, but he also has a couple of other ways he can support Liangyu. Scapegoat rank E applies target focus to her, so you can have her get attacked in order to benefit from her Noble Phantasm. Tactician's Advice will increase her defense, making it so she doesn't really have that much of a chance to die, give her damage cut, and also increase her NP gauge. Tactician's Wish will also, even though the Buster Card effectiveness and critical strength boost doesn't help, it will increase her max HP, letting her take those hits. And when she finally applies your debuffs and you are done with her, you can use his Noble Phantasm Kikaku Ichijin to fire her at the enemy, explode her, deal a ton of damage, as long as she's the leftmost ally in your setup, that is, and then bring in another servant from the backline to continue the fight. The other non-Lancer I want to recommend is Australia. Australia mainly because she can increase Liangyu's attack, defense, and NP gain, helping her get to that Noble Phantasm. Plus, on top of that, her Noble Phantasm generates 20 critical stars, which you can then feed into Liangyu to activate some of the different aspects of her Noble Phantasm. So I've got a couple of Lancers to recommend with Liangyu as well, starting with Summer Melt. The main reason I am recommending Summer Melt is because she has a very powerful AoE NP that generates critical stars, but she can only remove evasion buffs from enemies. If you've got that invincibility buff, well, you are going to need someone else to remove that invincibility buff, and that is where Qin Liangyu comes in with her Noble Phantasm. And finally, with his single strike, we have, of course, Li Shuwen. Li Shuwen, of course, needs help with that buff removal, which Qin Liangyu provides, while still fitting into that Lancer class advantage. Since Liangyu is not there to deal damage, but just to debuff, this is going to make it so Li Shuwen is going to be able to always have an opportunity to get past invincibility, to get past evade, to get past any of those pesky statuses that prevent him from dealing crazy single target arts type damage. For command codes for Liangyu, I've got to recommend full support and debuffs whenever possible. We're going to start with the Disillusion Blossoms command seal. This removes attack up buffs from enemies when attacking and also recovers 100 HP for Liangyu, increasing her survivability. The Reason of Creation has the ability to remove defense up buffs from an enemy and also increases her critical damage by 10%, giving Liangyu a little bit of help when it comes to the damage front. Crest of Titan's Pit increases her card's NP gain rate by 5%. You're going to want to chuck this on an arts card so Liangyu is able to get to her Noble Phantasm even faster. And finally, Bride of White Rose restores the party's HP by 200 when attacking using the engraved card. This allows Liangyu to give your party a little bit of extra survivability. In closing, my friends, I really hate to say this because every servant is useful in their own way, but it is work to make Liangyu work on your team. Her Noble Phantasm is just so odd, and it doesn't really fit that well into the way the game seems to be designed to play. It's not super fast. The ways you need to inflict those debuffs, get those buff removals, and get those heals off is just way too specific to the point that with the way FGO is designed at its core, it is just very difficult to get any of those effects to trigger the way you want them to. On top of that, in order to get the most effectiveness out of Liangyu's Noble Phantasm, it pretty much needs to be at NP 5 to make up for her very low attack stat. You can make her work with some of the options I have shown you, but overall, gang, I feel like a lot of masters will just realize that Liangyu is a lot more effort than they are willing to put in on their team when there's so many other far more powerful Lancers out there. But I still want to know what you all think, so go ahead and let me know all of your thoughts on Qin Liangyu down in the comments section below. Let me know what teams you're using her in order to make her work. Let me know if there's any other command codes or craft essences I might have missed that you think she will find very effective. And as always, let me know if you summoned her on the gacha if you're going for her. If you really enjoyed this video, I appreciate any and all help from my Patreon. Some of you on the Patreon have just been so fantastic lately, and I really appreciate all of that support. I've also got a Discord server available, which is down in the comment section below, where you can join up to talk about video games like FGO as well as others. I hope you're all having a phenomenal day out there, and I'll see y'all in the next video.